All right, folks, time for a real talk on the homestead here, because Eve and I have been doing this for a long time, homesteading here. You've seen us for a long time, but at this point, it's getting hard to keep doing what we're doing. For those of you that haven't actually spent a long period of time living in Alaska, I think there's a great big difference between like the romantic version of living here and the reality of living here and spending as much time here as we do. Summers are a grind. They're like a constant thing. I've often said that like summers in Alaska are kind of like a manic depressive lifestyle or something like that, because in the summer everything is manic, everything is right now. And when you're trying to run your own business and create a YouTube channel, raise kids, live the dream, the lifestyle dream that we thought we wanted for a long time, and sometimes we still do, but when the stresses of life like catch up with you, everything comes on, with it's making sure that the kids, you're fulfilling the needs that it means for raising children in Alaska, and making sure that they're good, intelligent, smart people. And also just making sure that you're making ends meet, and recreating, enjoying the place that we live. There's so much, there's so much, and it's got to be packed into this very short period of time in the summer that is difficult. It's so hard to try to fit it all in. And that's the struggle, that's the struggle, is we live in one of the most beautiful places in the world, but how much do we get to stop and appreciate it, or you just got your nose on the grindstone moving forward. And, those are the things that I feel like we're just grappling with all the time. Eve constantly is wondering how much we scale back, and she's constantly talking about getting rid of the goats, getting rid of the horses, less chickens. Why do we have the dogs, And I think if you talked to us like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, before kids, it was like, that's the dream. That's like the dream, is to have the horses and have the chickens and have the goats and be able to do it. But then you realize that like life, also everything that comes with it, and once you have children too, everything that comes with that it's so intense and it's so overwhelming that like, oh my gosh, I didn't ride my horses all summer. How much time, energy, money do I put towards having these animals, and then I don't even go ride them, or if I do, it's just like for such a short time that they're not well trained, because it takes constant training. It takes constant work with a horse to make it the best horse that it can be, from it being healthy and in shape so you can go on a long ride, to just getting all the quirks kind of shaken out of them, and so and that's constantly what Eve's talking about trying to scale it back a little bit on our farm, on the homestead here, and trying to figure out what is really important to happiness and healthy family lifestyle, and what's, what parts of those dreams that you decide you want to let go of or not, and keep trying to grind through it, or or try to let things go so you can take some stresses off your plate.
It has just been hard. Some days I feel good and I can just let things go and be okay with, hey, we didn't get as many vegetables this year. Totally fine. I can get stuff at the store. Yes, we live next to a store. It'll be fine. And then also feeling like, I failed other days. So balancing that ebbing and flowing of being okay with what is, and then feeling frustrated, I can't do better. So yeah, I don't know. It's been a year. It's just been a year. And fall definitely has an urgency to it, because we never know when the snow is gonna fly and the ground is gonna freeze, and it basically stops most things from happening. and your stuff's lost in the snow if you didn't pick it up.
You know, something just happened to me recently on my hunting trip, and it almost killed me. And we'll get into that in another episode. But my biggest takeaway from a very, very scary experience in coastal Alaska.
You weren't slowing down and you were assuming that no matter what happens,
I'd be able to get through
you'd
it.
be able to get through it.
Yeah.
You do have an invincibility thing.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Eve says I have a bit of an invincibility complex, you know, because of that, because I can walk on a tightrope and I can do backflips and stuff. I have a little bit of an invincibility complex, and you know, I'm definitely realizing that that is not the case, and you know, I'm realizing that I need to slow down and I need to start using some of that wisdom and paying attention to the things that matter so that I don't get stuck in those kinds of situations, because the consequences are way too high to you know, to have something go the wrong way and not be able to come home to my family because, you know, I just assume that I can muscle my way or use my agility to get through any type of situation. And this was one of those situations where I didn't have nothing to do with it. You know, is what would have saved my life, is what did save my life was being very, 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 very lucky in a bad situation. And I could have averted all of that by just using a bit more wisdom instead of just thinking that I could, you know, muscle my way through something, because you can't always, and then it's a bad scene.
I think another thing that made this fall really hard as well is that I just had like a lot of problems, or really one major problem, which was mice and voles, both up at the high tunnel and here, like eating my crops, and then trying to like stay on top of that while being gone or sick was just really hard. And then it definitely had a huge impact on the amount of different things that we got. We hardly got any beets this year. We got a lot less carrots. Yeah, we had a porcupine causing problems and eating things. And so that has been really challenging. And then just wishing I had the time to mitigate these issues and not really having the time and just having to let go. I think it's really hard to let go of things. It's like we really can't do it all. Yeah, like running a homestead and then trying to do an online business, social media, YouTube, so that we can make ends meet, so we don't physically have to work as hard. Ivan especially, so he doesn't have to run heavy equipment and work in construction, which his body cannot handle forever. You know.
Sometimes I feel burnt out. You know, I have a really hard time letting go of the dream. I've had horses my entire life, and I think that they're like an amazing animal. To me, they're a very calming animal whenever I spend time around them. But they're a lot of work, you know, and a lot of cost. And I even have it good because we have so much land, so it doesn't cost me anything to keep them somewhere. We have a lot of hay, thanks to my dad, but I cannot rely on him forever for making hay. He makes a lot of hay because he's got a lot of cows, and so it's not that much extra work to make hay for the horses, you know. But I don't really want to be a cattleman. It's so much work, and it really ties you to the land. You know, having animals tie you to a place in a big way. They call it animal husbandry for a reason, because you're married to those animals, you know. If you ignore them, they die. And what are the consequences of that? You know, it's a bad thing. You feel like a horrible person. There's legal repercussions of animal abuse in that way too, and so that's not an option. So you either have to have people that, you know, so if we want to leave for a period of time in the winter or something like that, we have to have people that will take care of the horses for us, take care of the goats for us, and we're fortunate there that we have Eve's mom helps us some, but she's getting older and we can't rely on her forever. And so it's definitely, you start realizing, like, you know, to maintain the Alaskan lifestyle or the homesteading lifestyle with animals and everything like that, it is a major commitment for many, many, many years, you know. Or you just sell it all and move away, get rid of it, you know, and some people can take that approach to things, try something out for a while. But I feel like at this point I'm so entrenched generationally into this lifestyle that it's important for me.
Something I really want to focus on for this coming year is trying to figure out how to slow down, and even when we're busy, and not wishing time away. Do you ever have those moments where you're wishing for a certain period in time to be over? I was like, I don't want to live my life like that. It's not all the time, but I'm like, how can I learn to appreciate those moments of pure chaos and stay grounded and not wish them to be over? Because then really you're just like wishing this precious life away. And a lot of times I wish for summer to be over because I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so overworked. I'm so exhausted. We work so hard, and it's literally one of the most incredible, spectacular, beautiful times of year here. And I'm like wishing it away. Sort of my hope for the future is to, be able to just slow down, somehow figure out how to do less. I haven't really figured that one out yet.
Having the horses and goats, you know, the kids aren't super involved in the horses and goats. But it'd be interesting to kind of look at it from their perspective and see, you know, I think if you had talked to my dad when I was a kid, how involved was I at like 8, 10, 12, you know, about that age in kind of those animals? And he probably would say I wasn't, you know, really that involved. But from my perspective, I was. Like I was doing stuff with them, spending time with them, and, you know, messing around a little bit. And I think more than anything, I gained a confidence in myself in that, you know. And so that's kind of like the pushback is like, okay, we don't ride the horses much, but what by having the horses around, what does that give to our kids in terms of like confidence and self-reliance and the ability that they know that they can just go up to those animals and they can read the body language of the horses and they can read the body language of the goats and kind of understand, you know, how much you can trust them and how much you kind of can't trust them in certain situations, and learn the personalities of different animals and what you can get away with. And so I still feel like it's worth it personally to have these animals around, even though I may not be riding them as much as I should be or would like to be. But I have the hope that as my kids get older and become teenagers, is that maybe they will. And in my mind, that's worth it, even if they ride them and have the initiative to ride them a little bit on their own at some point. That's worth it. That's worth it to me to kind of keep them, because it you know, that's something that they can take with them the rest of their life, is knowing how to saddle a horse and knowing how to ride a horse and everything like that. So that's my hope, is that you know, but it is a lot of work in order to get there, you know, and that's the other side of the coin. Is it worth it? Is the work worth it?
Some of the chores that sort of mark the changing of the season for us is getting all the garden harvested, put up in freezers, root cellar, canned. Then there's the cleanup. So we need to get everything, all the hoses drained and things put away and cleaned up before the snow flies. You know, systems drained of water, things winterized, you know, stock tank heaters for the animal water, sort of a million like little things all over the homestead that we have to sort of wrap up. It's just hard to remember all the little details when you're spread out all over the place. You gonna be really loud, chicken? Could you not do that? It's just hard to find a balance between the homestead and working and being a mom and, you know, taking care of the kids' needs and all the things.
So if I could reach out and try to speak to an audience out there, you know, it would be people that are either you know, just starting to have kids and want to have a homestead, want to live this lifestyle, want to move to Alaska. You know, I think that it's those young folks that are maybe a decade or so behind Eve and I, and that are trying to, you know, thinking about moving to Alaska, thinking about having a farm and raising animals and stuff. Is I think you'd have a lot to gain from watching these videos, from learning from us, and because I really want to try to bring an authentic perspective on what it looks like to be a homesteader in today's age, what it looks like, you know, because it is not an easy thing to think that you're just going to get some land and you're going to raise livestock and animals and that somehow is going to pay for itself. It is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I had a lot of help along the way, from our family having this land already to our television show, Alaska, The Last Frontier, for a lot of years. Those are some of the things that I feel like really made this a great success. You know, I still think back to this one moment years ago, and probably around like season 5 or 6 of Alaska, The Last Frontier. And Eve and I had been invited to this self-reliance expo in Denver, Colorado, where we, you know, we kind of came as a guest speaker to speak to people that liked our television show. And we met, I met these young folks who were there who were probably in their early 20s. And at that point I was, probably, you know, they were early mid 20s or something, and I was in my early 30s. And they were big fans of the show, and they came up to us and they said, "How do you guys do what you do?" And they told me that they had inherited some land from her grandfather, and they didn't want to sell it. They wanted to homestead it. They wanted to grow their own food and live off the land. And I remember looking at them and saying, you just do it, you know? And God, I still think about that all the time, at how much of an oversimplification that was. And I also remember, you know, before our television show, there were some folks, and they had money, and they told me a similar thing, you know, and I was like, gosh, they're doing all these amazing things, and how are they doing it? You know, I kind of came to realize after that, and that line stuck with me, you know. I said, you just work hard and do it. And that line stuck with me. And over the years, because honestly, I felt a bit like a fraud when I said that to them. Back then I was getting paid a lot of money to make Alaska, Last Frontier on the Discovery Channel. And that was really offsetting me to live this life and show you guys the life, you know, of like, oh, look at all the things we're doing as homesteaders. But we were being paid by Discovery in order to do that, you know, in order to, yes, we were doing it anyways, but we weren't doing it to that extreme, to that extent. We weren't like just marching forward and building things, and the time that it takes to build floating four-wheelers and bridges to nowhere and cabins out in the woods and everything. You know, we were subsidized by Discovery Channel to live the dream, which is amazing. Like, I wouldn't take any of it back for a second. I always told people that was like the best job I ever had, because I got paid to go hunting, paid to go fishing, paid to build my own homestead. Who gets an opportunity like that? Very rare. Well, actually, nowadays you kind of can through social media, you know, and so I think that's a major thing that's changed in between when those people asked me that all those years ago and now. Is like, now you can, you know, you can actually go and you can homestead, and you can start a social media channel, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, something like that, and you can make money, which is cool. For my audience out there that wants to go and homestead, you know, make sure you find a niche, and also make sure you've got a system in order to kind of employ you through those ups and the downs, you know. That would be my big takeaway, is figure out what that is and go for it.
One, I do want to talk about how gratifying and rewarding it is to have full freezers and a full root cellar of food and know that all the hard work has paid off. And yeah, it's like, I did that. We did that. And that is really gratifying and does feel really good. And that is one of the things that keeps me going in the fall when I'm definitely kind of tired and exhausted from just the busyness and the losing of the light, you know? And yeah, it's that it is really gratifying to feed my family incredible food.
I want to be able to reach out to my audience, you know, young folks, people with kids, people that are just starting out as homesteaders, and use this channel kind of as a great template, you know, for a way to kind of navigate some of the difficulties and the joys and the excitement with living in Alaska, living the dream, having animals, what that means, the hardships, the struggles, but also the joy and the fun with the absolute silliness of having animals and the hard work and everything like that. Because I personally don't really want to do it any other way, although sometimes I do dream about doing it a different way, and that's good too. It's always good to have a dream.
Sun shining in my pink eye.
No, you can't tell right now because
good.
you're kind of squinting into the
Yeah,
sun.
there we go.
Eve's got pink eye right now
No,
in one eye.
I have an allergic reaction happening in my eye.
Which is kind of like a form of pink eye. I just got back from a hunting trip where I almost died, so that, but I didn't because I'm here. And lots of great content coming out.
Hallelujah.
And yeah, hit the like button and the subscribe button because it definitely helps the channel grow, which is what we want to do, reach more people so more people can see that the Kilchers are still here doing stuff.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Adventures to come.
Thanks so much for watching this episode.